Oh, I just wanted to know exactly like what he said in regards to that because he's told other organizations that they will have full rollover.
Well, I did not record him.
Well, I mean, okay.
But like I said, he didn't specify how much is going to be rolling over.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will refer this to the Student Services Committee. Next up, SB 6443, the Stack Exchange Adoption Act Repeal Act.
Howdy. Self-explanatory. Repeals it. Questions?
And I haven't even written the title yet.
Unanimous consent to bill be considered.
Yes. Senator Womack, question.
Hi, Mark Womack off campus. I really like the idea of stack because, as you know, Wikipedia constituency. Why not try to make it work?
Well, the problem is that this is calling on the Constituency Affairs Committee to do something in the statute. I mean, that's a bottom. You listen to the wrong place.
Okay. Further questions? Bill Lockett.
I mean, it's a good act.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, Chair refers this to the Rules and Regulations Committee. With that, move to SB 6444, Senate Finance Committee bill.
Howdy. Unanimous consent will be considered as read, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
All right. Basically, what this does, in a nutshell, is it creates a standing committee called the Senate Finance Committee that would take on the responsibilities of our current two quasi-special, I don't know what you call them, ad hoc committees, Appropriations and the Fee Committee. Okay, this is chaired by Chair Thornburg and Chair McNutt. And what those two committees currently do, Appropriations appropriates the budget, the money in our account that's given to us by SFAB, and what the Fee Committee currently does is looks at the student fee increases. Now, all of that happens in the fall semester. What this bill is doing is taking those responsibilities, putting them into one committee, and now making it a legislative committee, a standing committee throughout the entire year, so that we look at fee policies not for a 6 or 5 week window of time for the entire year, freeing up more senators to focus on these issues. We're talking about student control over non-academic student fees that's coming down the pipeline. We need to have an entity in place to potentially replace SFAB. You see where I'm going? Also, the Senate Finance Committee existed for, as far as I'm aware, a decade in the 1980s to the early 1990s. So this is nothing new. It's not rocket surgery. To make this happen is we have to cut the Constituency Affairs Committee drastically. To accomplish that, we remove the caucus leader system. Why do we do that? Because it discriminates against smaller caucuses, forcing the smaller caucuses, like freshmen, one of you has to serve on CA, and then they can't serve on policy. So instead, what we're going to make CA now is just like any other legislative committee that you can prep. So we're not undercutting CA. This is actually a great idea. It came from Chair Harris. So with that, in general, that's all it does. Creates a Senate Finance Committee, cuts appropriations and fee, and reorganizes the Constituency Affairs Committee. Yield.
Okay, with that, questions? Senator Harris. Chair Harris.
Would the chair of this committee be the Senate Financial Officer, or would that still be the pro temp?
It would still be the pro temp. This chairman would be a Senate officer, and would be Chair Thornburg right now. I would just promote Chair Thornburg directly to Senate Finance Chair. So I think that's the only time I've ever seen that happen.
All right.
Why not?
Further questions? Going once, going twice, seeing none, Chair will refer this bill to the Rules and Regulations Committee. And with that, we go to SB 6445, the Executive Judicial Branch and Governance Council Status Quo Act.
All right, howdy. Unanimous consent. Consider this as read. All right. All right. What this act does is 6430, the SGA constitutional amendment. If you've read it, it talks about how the executive branch, the government council, and the judicial branch are authorized to enact whatever rules they need to that the statutes say they can. So what this does is in the statute it says you can enact pretty much any rule that relates to the branch. Very, very flexible. So I know there was a little bit of concern initially probably from a couple of the branches about, well, if Senate has this statutory authority now, are they going to, cream us over the coals and micromanage us? No. And so I wanted to make that very clear, and that's what this act primarily does. If you look through the judicial chapter, that's probably where a more detailed stuff on. Why I went into the judicial branch bylaws and just took out the things that are statutory in injunction prevents something from happening, and a writ of mandamus is whenever that order goes into effect, there's some type of stick to it, right?
30 seconds.
If you'll look on there, and I want to flag this for you, because I'd like to comment on it, is that a writ of mandamus can be enforced by a fine. Okay? If you do not comply with a writ of mandamus, with a court order, and with a writ of mandamus that follows, you can be fined. If you don't pay your fines, you can't run for election, you can't be an SGA. Okay? Also, the judicial court has the power to remove you from office, not us, not anybody that's expressed in the Constitution, but everybody else. So,
5 seconds.
why is it done? Because that's the only way you give judicial orders sticking power.
And time. With that, Senator Bowen.
Scott from Parliament here. Cody, what protections might students have under the new Constitution for excessive fines issued by the judicial court?
I believe it's the intention of the bill author, me, that students will be protected from excessive fines and punishments. A clause to be interpreted by the judicial court itself, so the restraint would have to be put on themselves. But the current fines underneath this proposal, $10 maximum for infraction, $30 maximum for session. So, I mean, basically, if you get a fine under this, epic fail, right? So that means that you have ignored a legal court order from judicial court. That's bad for in my opinion.
Okay. Further questions? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, Chair will refer this to the Rules and Regulations Committee. 3 in a row. With that, SB 6446, Student Feedback for Student Services Bill. Kevin.
Hi. So I was parking in the West Campus garage a few weeks ago, and I went out of my car, actually I was going back to my car, and discovered that the door handle from the stairwell into the garage had been broken off, and there was actually no way to get into the garage. I had to go around, and I got it, but it wasn't there for me. And I wanted something to be done about that, but I didn't know who to talk to. And eventually someone opened it from the other side with the trash can, blocked the door. And as far as I know, nobody ever found out this was a problem, and it probably got fixed. And so issues like this are what this bill tries to address. The idea is to have something like a "How's my driving" sign that you see on the back of buses and other cars. Something like that for anything student services. So that can be facilities, dining services, transportation, bike racks, that sort of thing. There are a lot of issues that students that I face every day with student services that are really minor things that probably don't need a bill to be fixed, but they just need to be acknowledged by student services. And the staff needs to know about these things. So things like a door handle need to be fixed. I know there are a lot of outlets in the SEC right now that are in the law, but they don't have any power.
30 seconds.
And I don't have any ability to take care of that. So this is what this bill is trying to address. Have a hotline, feedback hotline online, that people can go to and report issues like this. And it'll go directly to student services staff. We also want it to be made public so that we can hold student services accountable for larger issues that SGA is.
Okay, thank you. With that, Chairman Nutt, sorry.
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. Further questions? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, Chair refers this to the Student Services Committee. With that, SB 6447, change the current Q-drop system bill.
Which do drive terrible news. I'm just kidding. I motion to table this bill. We all get out early. It's supposed to be fun.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of tabling, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Being chair, that passes. So this is tabled. With that, Senator Spencer, SB 6448, the friendlier options for obligatory dining or food bill.
The title of this bill is proof that if you're studying for the FE exam, you have an idle mindset. What this bill is asking for is it's talking about the mandatory meal time, which is actually the entire reason that I'm here before you guys now, because that's what I found out and a lot of the text of the bill as it currently is was written hastily because I'm going to be introducing in committee basically all of the amendments that were made to this by RHA. The goal being to send a unified message from all, from both main student governments that we're still opposed to the mandatory meal plan.
Okay, thank you. With that, questions, Senator Chair Smith?
Senator Smith, I think it's fair. John, have you spoken with David Riddle in regards to
Yes, I have.
the new student-led surveys he's doing over this specific topic?
I have spoken to David Riddle actually last night at the RHA meeting. And this was one thing that we talked about. I am aware of the survey that he was doing. However, I've got 3 weeks left, or 3 meetings left in Senate, and that's why I was getting this into the hopper, so that way I can hopefully, if the survey doesn't go through, get a student opinion out there before I.
Brief follow-up.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what kind of questions he's asking on the survey?
I am not aware of this.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, Chair will refer this to the Student Services Committee. With that, that concludes our session of new business. With that, we will move into open session.
Speaker, I have an item for open session.
You have an item for open session. Can you please give a 1 and 2 sentence summary?
This is the 2012-2013 SGAP committee report adoption bill.
Okay, this is the fee.
Which is basically this is a shell bill that we will then refer to the fee committee to make recommendations on fees that will be brought up as an item for ordinance at the next meeting. It needs to be presented as an action.
Okay. All in favor of adding this to tonight's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, ensure that passes. This is added as SB 6449.
Yep.
Yep.
Howdy.
Howdy.
As you know, the fee committee, which is comprised of 4 senators, 3 non-senators, to review all proposed fee increases to students, is underway. And we would have liked to have had a bill ready for tonight, but as you know, the Constitution requires that we have a 0.5% of the student body's opinion before we make a ruling. And so that's the phase that we're in right now. And we are utilizing SurveyMonkey.com to do that. So if you look at my Facebook, Amanda's Facebook, Scott's Facebook, it's also on the Senate page. Go and take the survey. It is doesn't have to be scientific. It's not scientific. No more scientific than the Joe Rout survey, for example. But it's just another way to garner opinion. And basically, so what we're sending to committee tonight is a shell bill. Can we scroll down? Would that be possible? Can we scroll down? With that?
Yeah, sorry. For simultaneously trying to send it out.
Okay, so block and launcher, as you can see, this is a shell bill. You know, it just says insert short reason for supporting or opposing, etc. So again, no decisions have been made. We've gotten together as a committee. We put together a survey, but we haven't decided what we are voting for, voting against, etc. So,
Just 30 seconds.
a resolution that's basically thanking not only the Development Commission but also Emily Young for their work on the current TFSGA bill permit. All right, so the reason why it wasn't brought up in consent agenda was just because it was submitted a little bit late. So all we need to do is close Q&A, take a real quick voice vote on it, and we'll be done with this and we can move on to the statute.
Okay, so seeing that, any questions? Going once, going twice, seeing none, we'll move into a period of voting on this, period of debate, I'm sorry. A motion, that's out of order, but if nobody raises a placard, then I'll, going once, going twice, chair deems debate one-sided. Yes, stage plan.
Was this added to the agenda? Can we take that vote?
Oh.
Unanimous consent?
You're totally right, I'm
Motion
sorry.
Unanimous consent added to the agenda.
Unanimous consent, any objections to adding this to the agenda? Going once, going twice, none, okay, it's added to the agenda, I'm sorry, now you're in.
It already was.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in for voice vote.
Motion has been made for, okay, yes, let's moved and seconded, all in favor of voice vote, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Pretty sure the ayes do have that, so we will take a voice vote. All in favor of passing the TF with SGA resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And Chair, the ayes do have that, and that resolution passes. With that, I'm sorry, yes, Chair Marshall.
Speaker, a statute that I'd like to introduce.
Okay, statute, can you please give a 1 to 2 sentence summary?
Essentially, if we remember Mr. Spars's former NSC voter registration bill, we wanted to convert that into a statute, and we'll explain why.
Okay, all in favor of adding this to the agenda, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ensure that passes. This is added as SB 6450.
Okay, guys. I have brought this to committee, and we're talking about it in committee, and we're like, yeah, what are we going to do about it after it expires? We're going to redo it, and it just didn't seem feasible. So what we want to do is we want to make this a statute. We want to make it a yearly thing. There's some minor modifications. I've talked to Bryce Bender a little bit about it, and Bryce and I want to make some minor changes with this. We want to put this directly on the shoulders of the Legislative Affairs Chair. No, not chair. On the executive side. We want to put that so whenever Jeff or the next incoming student body president comes in and sees there's line item things to do, that comes up as a line item thing to do year in and year out on the legislative relations VP's agenda. So I'm talking about the executive side, legislative relations guy. Don't get confused, please. With that, are there any questions?
Okay, with that, questions for the bill author? Seeing going once, going twice. Seeing none, Chair will refer this to the Community Relations Committee. With that, Chair Smith. Okay, can you please give us a summary?
It is a bill calling for veteran awareness across campus, more veteran-friendly advising, and more consideration of veteran service as curriculum credit.
Okay, all in favor of adding this to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that is added as SB 6451.
All right. As far as I know, I've met with Taylor Sessions on Monday, and this bill handles most of the academic side of things as far as the veterans initiative he's pushing. And this bill pretty much takes care of most of that stuff as far as getting veterans the core curriculum credit they get from service overseas, better advising, and more of a push here in SGA.
Okay. All right. Any questions for the bill authors? Going once. Chair Barber.
Ready with what we just heard from them, and just, you may be totally right. Would it be wise to form their committee and let them go forward with this, and then write a bill about it, or do you think it would be better to write a bill about it and then go forward?
Actually, in the very last whereas clause and the last let it be from their next clause, it asks for the
will not allow any item for new business or anything that would normally be voted on to be presented on the consent agenda. This would not allow emergency legislation on the consent agenda. So there's no way to use this to sneak through something that hasn't already been sent out. This is just the normal bills that show up in your inbox before the meeting as new business. You'll have the opportunity to read them beforehand. And if you want to hear a presentation, any senator can still pull it down and require the bill author to give a presentation under the normal rules. But I think this gets us through a lot quicker on some of the very non-controversial things that just get sent to committee without question anyway. And without other questions.
Okay, Senator Womack. Withdrawn, Speaker Hathaway. Withdrawn, Chair Barber.
Scott, since you just have considered this as ready, let us ask questions.
Chair Harris.
You can't already do this. Say unanimous consent, consider it read. We really need a bill.
We can technically do that. I mean, you could say at the beginning of every new business, Senator could say, I will, with unanimous consent, consider all of these read and refer them to committee, but that takes time in and of itself. And it's kind of confusing to people. I think it's easier this way, and it still makes it clear what's going on. You don't have to make a bunch of special motions to try to save time. It's already built in the system.
Okay, Speaker Hathaway.
Hi, I just have to ask a question after all. Do you think this bill is necessary considering we all get out by 10:30 and 10:45? Absolutely it is.
Yes, and because what I've observed is that when we get past about the 10-minute mark, a lot of times, thankfully not this meeting, we're doing very well, but when we have one or two controversial items or just a lot of items for old business, then what will happen is we'll get to this last 10 or 20 minutes, and there will be 5 things that need to be done, and people will go crazy trying to get their thing done. When everyone is rushing, we use time less efficiently than we do when people aren't rushing. So the more time we can save on things that are procedural anyway, on things that aren't really controversial, and honestly, that I think a lot of people aren't even paying attention to, the more time we can spend on really important things and think through the decisions we're making, especially in those last, in that last 30 minutes or so of the meeting.
I can't. 15 seconds, Senator Andrew.
If the bill author wants to present his new business, can he do it?
Well, yeah, he's a senator, so you can just pull it out the consent agenda.
Chair, not 5 seconds.
Hey, Thomas, student services, Scott Cohen, true or false? This will make meeting more quick and efficient.
Yes.
Thank you.
Man, that's
True
true.
or false? True or false?
That is a debate. Well, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Questions. Yeah, that is a debatable question. Okay. You can debate whether it's more efficient that way. Okay. Anyways. Okay. With that, I will refer this to the Rules and Regulations Committee. With that, do I see further items for open session? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, Chair will close open session, which takes us into announcements. Does anybody have any brief announcements you need to make about student organization, anything else like that? Going once, going twice, Chair will see no announcements. That's moving to committee reports. The chairs are available for any questions you may have for them. So, do I see any questions for any of the chairs? Going once, going twice. Sorry, yes.
Can I make a report?
Yes, you can make, yeah. Chairs can certainly make a report if you want to.
So last Rules and Regulations meeting, we had, well, let's say, maybe one other person attend and the bill authors. And so we were really just making amendments on our own legislation, which with something as big as, say, the Constitution, is not necessarily, like, we appreciate all the trust that you are putting inside of us, but we would also really like to see some cooperation and maybe some, if y'all would like to read the bill and let us know what you think about it. That way, when we get to the floor, this isn't something that we have to toil over because it's such a long document, and it'll get extremely difficult inside of debate and amendments and everything like that. So please read the bill beforehand, and please come to our RR meeting. We have a lot of good bills coming up that really affect not only our meetings, but also students in general. So I really would ask y'all to come to the meetings if you have any questions about that, and it'll be on Wednesday. You can read my committee report for any other information.
And committee reports are online. They're posted online. Chair Barber, did you have something you want to say?
Sign up and be a Paul Greeter, even if you don't like me, come back home.
Okay. Are there any questions for the? Please hold off. Just don't pack it up. We're getting out of here on meeting adjourned. Thank you. Sorry.
And I would remind everyone to please stay in their seat and not move around so I can hear. It gets really hard towards the end. Senator Alkendorf.
Howdy.
Naniger.
Howdy.
Kingsbury.
Howdy.
Jessup.
Howdy.
King. Morris. Kelly.
Howdy.
Fernandez. Sosa.
Howdy.
Berry.
Howdy.
Fernandez. Lehutsky. Howdy. Struble.
Howdy.
Markowski. Bonner. Howdy. T. Brown.
Howdy.
Castelleja. Howdy. Curie. Howdy. Esparza. Howdy. Gore. Keith. Howdy. Hilton. Howdy. Buckley.
Howdy.
Massoud.
Howdy.
Lawson. Luke.
Howdy.
Marai. Howdy. Davis.
Howdy.
Roberts.
Howdy.
Shutt. Howdy. Hill. Howdy. L. Sullivan. R. Sullivan. Van Dyne.
Howdy.
Marisco.
Howdy.
Womack.
Oh, Benz.
Adams.
Howdy.
Henneman.
Is that roll? Okay, with that, we are adjourned.
What y'all think?